Take going to call the meeting to order. Sorry, we're just a few minutes late for this morning.
Mr. Zach is going to see if we can get somebody to figure out where this is at.
Oh, the nice hum? Okay,
Yes.
all right.
I think it's the drone.
Oh, the drone's watching us.
That's okay.
All right, morning, everybody. We need to excuse Mr. Quarter and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Bill.
And Mr. Norris, and Commissioner Zappel is here, but I'll take a motion to excuse those two. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Need a motion to adopt the agenda. A motion and a second. All those in favor say aye, please.
Aye.
Turning to the minutes.
The minutes from our last meeting are included in your packet, and if there's no discussion, I would make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Motion and a second for the approval of last month's minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? All right.
Too fast.
Too fast. And now we have a resolution for Ms. Miles. And first off, I'd like to recognize everybody in the audience that's here for Linda. Her husband, her ladies that she is soon to travel with, because she won't be with us anymore. We've got some former past board members with us. Anybody else for Linda? Just kind of.
Tom, our first HR director.
Oh, that's right. Okay. All right. That brought Linda on board.
Yes, Tom brought me on board.
Okay. Okay. So we have a we have a resolution in your packet for Linda. I'm going to go ahead and read it because we want to make her cry. Don't really want to make her cry. But so the board has before them a resolution recognizing Linda Avery Miles.
Yeah. That's enough, right there.
But kind of shorten it. Whereas we were organized in 2017 by the city and the county to create our organization. In June of 2009, the authority entered into a contract with the Miles firm, wherein Linda Miles served as the authority's legal counsel, working with and reporting directly to the authority board. Whereas Mrs. Miles previously served for many years as the city attorney for Greensboro, North Carolina, bringing a wealth of knowledge and expertise regarding local government boards and the many laws under which they serve. Mrs. Miles has continually served as the authority's legal counsel since 2009, giving the authority the benefit of her legal knowledge and experience far beyond the time commitment she initially anticipated. And we've dragged this out as long as we can. Whereas Mrs. Miles consistently advised the board and staff on members of confidentiality, closed session discussions, public meetings, and public records. Whereas Mrs. Miles worked closely with authority management and staff to ensure that all contracts, real estate transactions, interlocal agreements with other governmental agencies, litigation, and other legal matters were handled properly and in an expeditious manner. Whereas Mrs. Miles advised on the fulfillment of agreements that transferred from the City of Wilmington and New Hanover County, including CFPUA's acquisition of the Porter's Neck water system. Mrs. Miles worked with the clerk and an internal team to codify the authority's ordinance, making it a cohesive document that's easily accessible to staff and customers. Whereas Mrs. Miles' knowledge of environmental regulations, North Carolina and United States law, and her extensive contacts within the legal community guided the authority as it navigated and fulfilled an environmental EPA consent order with origins predating the authority's creation. Whereas Mrs. Miles continues to be instrumental in guiding the authority through litigation in federal court regarding PFAS contamination, working with outside counsel, the board, and staff to achieve positive results for the authority's customers and the citizens of our region. And whereas Mrs. Miles has consistently advocated for fair and equitable treatment of all customers and employees, and whereas the authority recognizes that it is in good standing with the sterling state and national reputation as a result of Mrs. Miles' leadership. Now, therefore, the Cape Fear Public Utility Authority does recognize Linda Avery Miles for her dedication to the legal field and local government and her continued leadership of the authority. I'll listen for a second. the opportunity to say whatever you would like.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
Yeah,
that we
go ahead,
adopt the
Board.
Resolution.
You what?
Adopt the resolution.
Okay. All those in favor say aye?
Thank you, Charlie.
Somebody was going to vote no, saying she's going to stay.
Well, Donna, as she has for the last 15 years, did a really good job making me look better than I am. So thank you, Donna. And I want to thank my friends and Tom Morgan and Mike Brown. We went through the really rough times. Y'all think it's rough now, but we went through the really rough times together. One of my favorite stories is that Mike would get his children to sleep around 9 o'clock, and about 1 a.m. I'd get the email from him. And the George House would email me at 6 in the morning. So during the first Gen X days, I want to thank my husband and my friends here. They're not here to support me. They're here to make sure I retire. That is the reason they're sitting there. Mike, as I said to you many times before, I only planned to stay for a year when Tom Morgan called me, but it ended up 15, and it ended up 15 because of the caliber and hard work and dedication of the staff and the boards here. My favorite thing is I could always, and being a child of the 60s, that was important, could always count on this board to do what was fair and equitable and the best thing for the citizens of New Hanover County. So thank you for letting me be a part. We've come from the consent decree with EPA to having a GAC system that's beyond anything anybody in the country has. So I'm very proud of this organization and very thankful for y'all for giving me the opportunity to be a part of it. Thanks.
Would anybody like to add anything? We'll take just a point of privilege if anybody wants to say anything. I know it's kind of impromptu.
I remember that morning when Vaughn's article made the newspaper. It caught us all kind of blindsided with regard to the Gen X and all the PFAS that we had never heard of, or I hadn't. And soon after it broke regionally and then statewide, what have you, we started, I'm sure everybody else that was on the board at the time, started getting calls from every fancy law firm in America. The lady they made the TV show, the movie about, all that, came to town and just couldn't believe that we were going to stick with what we had. And it caused a lot of head scratching, but I remember very well the decision that we ultimately made was Linda's recommendation, and boy, has it worked. So we had faith in her then, have faith in her now, and here we are, where we are, and thanks largely in part to that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Linda.
Go ahead, Mr.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You guys are determined to make me cry.
Oh, yeah, we all got together. And Linda, I know you know this, there in public service and certainly in government, there are those people who work constantly in the background to make sure that everything happens and to keep us all straight over the years. I know I've had the wonderful opportunity to work with you for a number of years here and also down at Thaleen Hall for a number of years. I can only say your guidance has been absolutely true all along the way, and you have saved me several times from walking off the edge and jumping when I've been frustrated or aggravated. It's been your good counsel and your steady hand that has helped me personally, and certainly this organization, in everything that you've laid your hands on. You're really wonderful, and you're really smart, and you're really consistent. And I really thank you for all the service that most people in New Hanover County will never fully realize how much you've done for us. But you certainly have made this place a whole lot better than when you first walked in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. We good? Did we make them cry?
Yeah, you
Mission
got me.
accomplished.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Go on with the boring stuff. Okie dokie. All right, you have to sit through the rest of
I
this
know.
meeting. Okay, then you can go. All right, so returning to our agenda, next up is public comments. Do we have any public comments today? Makiba or Donna? No one on the list signed up? Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to the consent agenda, we have, yes.
Thanks. So just for everybody who may hear that miserable hum in the system, we have people that are scurrying right now to work on that to try and resolve it. So I apologize for it. We have these snappy new microphones. I'm sure that it's related somehow to that, but it will get fixed as soon as possible.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Commissioner. All right, we have 6 items on the consent agenda. Any questions about any of those? If not, I'll take a motion. Do you have a question, Mr. Smith?
Usually.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
So, I'm just on page 33.
Which item number?
It is. Oh, I guess it's under item number 6. Another $654,000. And this is money that's not covered by insurance or the landlord's contribution to the improvements, or
That's correct. That's
Okay.
correct.
this is something that wasn't anticipated, or?
Well, you may notice that we have secured quite a bit of insurance and landlord contribution. But with cost escalation nowadays, and with the fact that, much of the furniture that we're talking about was 15 years old, we're looking to fill a gap. We were planning on doing superficial renovations, and we brought some of those funding sources forward. We were also planning on doing a lighting conversion. We brought some of those funding resources forward. Dollar for dollar, and I'd be glad to have Carl go through the activity. I believe the investment we're making here is a relatively reasonable investment for the amount of work that we're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr.
I don't practice this furniture, but the scroll on the bottom, additional costs, CFPUA undesignated CIP is 654. But furniture purchase order is 264. What's the delta there that we're making out with the CIP?
The summary table that you see at the bottom is for the entire project, so not just the furniture, but also all the construction activities. We tallied it all up as a total project, just to be transparent all the way on how much we're spending, what we received back from insurance proceeds and other funding sources, and then the 650-some thousand is the remainder gap that we would have to fill with CIP funds. But again, we're going well beyond just putting the building back together the way it originally was. It's not only that, but also an upfit. Some of that was planned already anyway. Yeah, we have 11 years left on the lease, plus another 5 years that can go beyond that. We've been in the building since 2008, and on half the building is still original the way it was 15 years ago.
So we were doing some updates outside of the affected area of the office.
Yes.
All right, any other questions on the consent agenda items? All right, if not, I'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda items. In a second, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? All right. Moving on to administrative reports, our attorney's report.
As my parting gift, I have no report. I don't have anything for closed session, but others do. We have a closed session for
Yes.
personnel matters.
One of your best ones yet. Thank you. All right. Moving on to the executive director's report.
In the executive director's report, we have the key indicators, the safety report, the environmental report, and the strategic plan update. We stand ready to answer any questions associated with those reports.
Go ahead, Commissioner Zhao.
Thank you. In the key indicators report, I had just a couple of questions or clarifications, Ken. On page 46, the residential disconnects, I noted that we're 3 months behind in the reporting. Is there a more recent update, or is there a reason behind that, or?
Yeah, there's an intentional lag there to get our denominator. We base that off of residential customers who have gotten a bill, and we kind of do it in rolling 12-month chunks. That information can change. We do back bills and things like that. So in order to get that number stable, there's this intentional lag there. And so, yeah, that's kind of built into that metric.
So it's intentional is what you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
And it will continue to be that 3 months?
It should be well, okay, if we're in March now, it should be as of the end of November. Is that what you're saying? Yes,
Yeah.
okay, that's right.
So it will always be 3 months behind?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Otherwise, we'd have to go back and do adjustments as the data refined itself. So we're intentionally waiting until the noise works itself out of the system,
Yeah.
in lieu of giving you a number and then adjusting last month's.
Right, right.
Okay. John, if you can stay up there too, the other two questions I had are related to it. This goes back to, I know I guess it was in finance, and there's a comment I know that you're going to get to earlier, it's also contained in your report, about a slowing down of our services or the revenues coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And I just dug in further, as you probably knew I would when we got the key indicators there. And, I apologize, but I still cannot see anything in our key indicators. Now, you may be looking at it from a different, a broader view, and maybe that's the disconnect here. But I know in looking at a couple that really are directly related, on page 39, the development services, and also on page 48, the new meter installs. I see, consistent, strong growth in both of those, especially in year over year on that. And so I certainly am not challenging your thought, but I'm trying to get to where your concern is. I really respect when you say something like that, and that's a big statement when you say you see storm clouds or headwinds or a slowdown here. I'm just trying to get on your wavelength in this.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of a slowdown, and I think there's a little bit of a disconnect between our methodology to project customer growth in terms of ERUs and how it manifests in terms of the SDCs and in terms of retail rates. What we do is we go back 3 years and kind of take a 3-year smooth of the growth that we've seen. I don't think that a full 3 years is in the key indicators basically that methodology indicated growth that was above and beyond what we're actually seeing. I'm not saying that we're not seeing growth, it's just that the growth is slower than what our projections first told us, right? We're looking at kind of more acute on the sewer side in terms of SDCs and retail rates, where the growth that we projected in terms of sewer customers is lower than what we're actually saying compared to water, but they're both behind. I think there's kind of layered on top of that. I think there's a reason for that. We've seen kind of the spike in interest rates. We've seen a little bit of a temporary slowdown in terms of development, in building. There was kind of a pause that was taken earlier this year. I think that's picked back up, but I think that's also part of what we're seeing as well.
John, I think you answered it when you said you're taking a 3-year look at it, which would also capture a lot of the other monies that came into our county and into our system from the end of the pandemic and the infrastructure from the federal government money that's coming in. But as I look forward, I see the actually tremendous growth that we're going to be seeing up in the northern part of the county with as a result of the investments that the county is making and CFPUA along with the state money that we're making here. So that's what caught my eye. But I think you answered it. A 3-year overall, I can see that. I'm looking at a 1 year and also looking forward.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you.
As a reminder, we're continuously, I'm so sorry.
So no, it's okay, go ahead.
We're continuously looking at these key indicators to ensure that they line, one, with your strategic plan and your initiatives, and two, are delivering the information that you're looking for to make relevant decisions. So some of the information we're looking at is actually managerial statements behind the scenes that we don't put in the key indicators. We probably need to have a conversation around some of these revenue-related indicators and see if there's something that we need to bring out of the managerial statements into your monthly packet to better inform the conversation. Sorry, thank you.
Sure. Madam Chair, if we could turn to the strategic plan updates, I wonder if, John, if you would mind taking a moment. We at the Sustainability Committee, we've spent a lot of time looking at affordability to make sure that our ratepayers can have continued access to our critical services. And I noticed that there's an update about that in this strategic plan, and I'm just wondering if, for the benefit of the full board, for the benefit of our ratepayers, if we could just run through that briefly again to kind of summarize what we've been doing and what the changes are.
Sure. Yeah.
Just briefly.
Yeah. In terms of affordability, we have an official way to measure it, right? And what we look at is we compare for our service area. What we look at is we come up with an average percentage that a household that earns less than what we call the self-sufficiency standard. It's basically the level of income needed to afford every essential good and service, right? So we're looking at estimating what percentage of their income, for an average person in our service area that earns less than the self-sufficiency standard, pays for water and sewer, and we compare that to a hypothetical customer that earns exactly that self-sufficiency standard, right? And so kind of the logic behind that is that a person who earns the self-sufficiency standard, they can afford all of those essential needs. People who earn below that can't, right? And so they're having to make these difficult trade-off decisions on, do I pay my rent? Do I pay my water? Those types of things. And to the extent that the percentage of income that they pay is higher than a customer who earns the self-sufficiency standard, that means that our services are putting pressure on their ability to afford those other essential goods and services, right? And so that I believe that metric is in there, and basically what we've seen is because of rate increases that we've done over the past 2 years and the expiration of pandemic-related customer assistance, we've seen that gap widen, right, between what our target is and what we're actually seeing. So that kind of leads into what we're doing on the customer assistance front. There is a push from our industry to make the low-income household water affordability program a permanent program. It was authorized during the pandemic, and we received between $950,000 and $1 million over about a year period. So certainly a program that was the highest in terms of the actual dollars. Ken is going to DC, I think next month in early mid-April, and he is going to be assisting two of those professional associations in their efforts to make that a permanent federal program. There's already a very similar program on the energy side. It's called LIHEAP, Low Income Household Energy Affordability Program. So that's one thing. The other thing that we've done is we're doing a small pilot program with Waterway NC. And the goal of that program is it gives proactive assistance to customers who have a chronic need. So our customer assistance programs now, like LIWAP and like the CFPUA Assist dollars that are managed by DHHS, the trigger is for that customer to be already in arrears, delinquent, in danger of getting cut off. The logic behind this program is to give some kind of recurring assistance to customers to avoid that situation in the first place. So there's, I believe, 15 or 18 customers that are getting a credit of roughly $50 a month on their water and sewer bill. We expect that funding to run about 6 months, and after the program closes, and that should be probably in the July or August timeframe, we're going to start really diving into the data and looking at before and after, kind of how many times this customer qualified for disconnection, compared to, during the period they were getting that assistance, so we can kind of make some informed decisions on how to improve that program. I think Waterway NC's goal there is to get some good data that they can take to leverage funds from other organizations. United Way is one, but I think the main target is the endowment. So, Ken?
To add to that, I'm working with Lindsay at Waterway NC. We are putting together a presentation where we're going to go on the road together, and we're going to be going to various community organizations looking for their support, not just for our customer assistance program, but inroads into philanthropic sources that we haven't tapped together. So we're going to take the opportunity to go out and ask the community together to support our customer assistance program and to give us connectivity with foundations or with individuals who are significant givers to try to create new pipelines into our local program.
Thanks so much, appreciate that so much.
That would be, I was going to ask you to explain the graph on page 44, but I think you just did it. Okay.
Yeah.
I've got one other, looking back at page 36, which is under regulatory compliance, the inspections, and looking at the graph, it would appear we're behind the cumulative number of inspections through February as to where we were last year, yet we have more of those facilities to inspect. And I'm wondering if that's a staffing issue or...
I'll ask Beth Eckford to come up and speak to that. I suspect that the punchline is yes, but we will find out.
We have, it's restaurants and food service establishments, and we know they ebb and flow, some open, some close, and they close and open at different times of the year. And as they open, they close, and they're on annual inspections. They're like spaced out throughout the year. And the inspections are managed through our Maximo process. So the ones that come out in this month, some of the ones that came out during this time of year last year may have closed, or they may have shifted, just because of when the work is done. So we will, and we always have a time period towards the end of the year, the fiscal year, such that we can play some catch up in the event that people, that we didn't get to all of them. But typically we try to inspect them in the same month, give or take a month prior or a month after, to make sure that we get them. But we have also had in that group, we have not had staff turnover other than at the higher level. So.
Thank you.
Yes, go ahead. Councilman.
Also in regards to the affordability, there's some verbiage in the strategic plan update. It says for the 12 months ending September 2023, approximately 530,000 customer assistance have been applied to customers, significant decrease from an all-time high of $1.019 million that was applied during the 12 months ending October 22nd or October 2022. That's related. I mean, we kind of touched base in the paragraph before, but we don't specifically call it out. That the delta really related to one-time pandemic funding programs coming to an end.
Right.
I think that would be helpful to insert that language into the update. That doesn't look like, other programs were stopped, but realistically, it was a pandemic-related funding that was across the entire country was going out, and the money ran out.
That's right.
As it does.
Mhm.
And I think that would be helpful for future discussions, having that update.
Absolutely. That's a reasonable addition that we can make to the strategic plan update. Also, when I do the rest of my report, I'll share some of the activities that we're undertaking to try to create a permanent program.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is too is even with that high level of pandemic-related assistance, it still wasn't sufficient to completely close the gap, right? I think just another point that I'd like to say is I wear two hats, right? So I know you guys are, maybe get triggered and everything, and doom and gloom when we talk about potentially raising rates and things like that. It also hurts me as well because I wear this affordability hat, and so it's about finding that balance, right? There's this financial viability element, also recognizing that hey, that money that we need to be financially sustainable also impacts different customers differently. And so it's just finding that balance.
The level of sustainability income that you alluded to earlier, how does that compare with the average median income? Is it 30, 60, 80? We deal with that a lot in the city, a lot. And I was just wondering how that sustainability income, where is that level at?
Yeah, I think the most recent median household income for New Hanover County is somewhere, it's north of $60,000. I think it's about 62,000 or so. The self-sufficiency standard that we've calculated, and that's based on some data from the University of Washington. It's right around 60,000. So a couple of $1,000s less than the MHI for the service area.
Okay. And these programs that we're discussing here today that have the acronyms that I can't remember, these are all funded outside of rate-paying funds.
Yes, sir.
Okay, because in order, if we deviate from that, we have to go back to line pa to change everything.
Yes.
That's right.
Has there been an instance since during the pandemic that we've done that, or had to do that, or were required to do that? If there was, I missed it.
What is that?
To change our charter.
Oh, no, sir. The funding sources have consistently been outside of ratepayer funds, consistently, as is not just our charter, but what we understand general statute
The
requires of
general
us.
statute, you can only charge based on the type of service. And,
I understand, but it also, everybody gets treated equally.
Yes, sir.
Mhm.
Okay. Just wanted-
So we relied on the generosity of our sponsor and parent agencies. And I want to, again, express our thanks to the city and to the county for their generous contributions to the customer assistance program. That's been important. It's been a strong foundation. We also took advantage of the federal funding that came out as part of the pandemic. And our community was one of the more successful, not only in the state, but in the nation, in leveraging those programs to the benefit of our customers. That's part of why we've been asked to work with our partners across the nation in Washington to deliver that message, because we were so successful. The other reason we've been asked to work with our partners is that our congressional representation currently is part of the majority in the House. That gives us some advantage in having a conversation around a safety net program, which has traditionally been championed by the majority, in the current majority in the House. What I'd share with you is it's legislative season. I'm traveling to Raleigh on your behalf, and I'm traveling to Washington on your behalf a lot over the next couple of months. I'll be in Raleigh tomorrow, for example, at the Environmental Management Commission, having conversations about innovation transfers and 1,4-dioxin. I'll be in Washington next week for 3 days, working with our partners across the nation and directly lobbying for the low-income household water assistance program. That is our primary lobby push. Secondary to that is our CERCLA liability request. And then I will be back actually in April, following up with those same staff members and talking to the appropriations staff members to see if we made any progress between our requests next week and when they start pulling together their recommendations in April. I suspect, I don't want to build anybody's hopes up, I suspect this is an election year, and I believe it's unlikely that we'll see a new safety net program adopted. But this is a marathon, not a sprint. And we are building the momentum. Every year we see more utilities and more mayors and more chairmen of county commission boards also advocating for this important program. And we know as we come back to you asking for additional rate increases, we must seek these funds to release the pressure that puts on our most vulnerable customers.
Thank you.
Any additional questions for the executive? Do you have others to add?
Yeah, I do have a few other things to add to that. I note that our annual service awards ceremony is scheduled for April 5th from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. at UNCW's Burney Center. And I'd like you to consider joining us as we honor our key anniversary dates for our staff. We'll be providing additional notices as this gets closer. I'll ask Dawn if she would please make sure that it's on your calendar, you're aware of it, and if enough of you attend, that we properly notice it. I also just want to share that your strategic plan includes an initiative and a directive to create a culture of diversity, equity, and inclusion. We have started the work. We have a team internal to shape the ideas and to select a consultant. That selected consultant is on board, and we are now working through a process with that consultant, who is Intellect, the same consultant that served the city, to support our exploration of inclusion, equity, and belonging, and help us design and implement a comprehensive strategy. In parallel, that consultant will be reviewing our policies and procedures to help us understand what those policies and procedures, how they impact diversity and equity. Now, we're scheduling several workshops for our staff in late April, April 25th and 26th. And we'd like to invite any of our board members who are interested in attending those workshops to join us. We'll be sending a follow-up email again to see to gauge your interest and to help align those workshops to your availability. And details are coming soon. So that's the end of my report, Madam Chair.
Any questions for Ken? All right, thank you all. Moving on to executive committee reports. The executive committee met last week, March 6th. Those minutes are in your packet for review. No action is needed. Next, moving on to long-range planning committee. Mr. Hackman.
Minutes from the package from our February 26th meeting, included is the draft of the 10-year CIP. That'll be presented at the workshop after this meeting. And then we have a brief presentation for the prioritization for the extensions to private roads.
Welcome, Gary.
Good morning. Well, I'm trying to move this. That worked. Okay. So the agenda of this brief presentation is to discuss the special appropriations funding, the project scoring method, prioritization from the data, the results of the prioritization for the 18 million, some recommendations, key takeaways, and next steps. So in 2023, the General Assembly Appropriations Act Session Law set aside $18 million for drinking water extensions to unserved communities in New Hanover County impacted by PFAS. NCDEQ Division of Water Infrastructure administers these funds, much like they do for state revolving funds and other funds that CFPUA receives. And so we need to scope and estimate the project budget for the funding application. Where are we building the water mains? Why are we building mains in this neighborhood? How much is it going to cost? And any additional project funding added to the 18 million from other sources. So how can this be prioritized? So staff is recommending using an NCDEQ, North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality, health-based PFAS scoring method used for the bipartisan infrastructure law, emerging contaminants project funding. And the emerging contaminants include this PFAS group of chemicals. The reason for this recommendation is because it was approved by NCDEQ and used throughout North Carolina. It's an established methodology for PFAS project prioritization, and it considers health-based scores and disadvantaged communities. It assigns a maximum of 10 points for Gen X exceedances, PFOA exceedances, or PFOS exceedances above a certain level. And it adds 5 points for disadvantaged communities for a maximum score in any neighborhood or any project of 15 points. So,
Gary?
Sir.
It's Rob here. I've just been informed by our IT people that they need to take a 10-minute break if we'd like to get rid of this hum here, if it's disturbing enough. Personally, I find it really distracting. It's a political thing, Luke. And I don't know if it's, if we want to, Madam Chair, if we would like to take a break now, but they're going to need 10 minutes to kind of get in here to shut the whole thing down and to reset it to fix it. So whenever it's convenient,
Can we do it before we go into closed session?
you can do it whenever you want, but
Yeah, because we'll have a break then.
good, as long as,
Forgetting about it, every time you bring it up,
I'm sorry. Maybe I'm just feeling self-conscious about it. It is, yes, and it is going to get fixed, but
And so
sure.
Linda suggested right after closed session and before we go into the CIP.
Great,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Commissioner, I'm using it like a good backbeat rhythm. It's all good.
Brilliant.
So what were the results of the prioritization? So what areas would NCDEQ score the highest? And the highest possible is 15 points. That would be a PFAS score of 10 points plus a disadvantaged area score of 5 points. This would be a total of 15 points. And there are 81 wells. Rock Hill with Chair Road, Oakley, and Allendale. And you can see the Rock Hill with Chair Road, Oakley area circled in red in the upper circle on this, and the Allendale area circled in red on the lower circle on this. And the disadvantaged areas based on income as defined on the state's website are shown in the black polygons shown here on the map. So wells on US 421 generally serve businesses. Most have access to existing water mains due to the county's previous investment. I'd like to note that going forward, the results of analysis on this and the following slides are provided by NCDEQ, and the sampling date was through October 25th, 2023. Though there's some additional data that's come out, it really is generally along the lines of everything you'll see moving forward in this presentation. So Rock Hill with Chair Road and Oakley area would receive a total of 15 points. It serves 359 private wells. Over 114 wells were tested. PFOA and PFOS exceedances are the main scoring drivers. The conceptual budgetary estimate would be 15 millions, approximately 7 miles of water main, which, and this comes up to approximately $42,000 per connection. But that includes design, permits, construction fees, and all costs. The properties adjacent to water mains already served by the New Hanover County pilot project are excluded. And again, this includes all fees, private side connections. Now, any new customers that are connected would pay their water bill as occurs with all new customers. For the Allendale area, the total score is 15 points. It serves approximately 69 wells. Over 38 wells were tested. Gen X exceedances are the predominant scoring drivers. There's potential for Comores cost participation, of course. Conceptual budgetary estimate of $2.5 million, approximately 4,100 feet of water line, approximately $36,000 per connection, which is all included. You'll notice that number is smaller because the neighborhood is more densely constructed. Again, this includes all fees, private side connections, and the customers pay their water bills. So the prioritization recommendation is to use the NCDEQ established method, which is health-based. It considers disadvantaged neighborhoods. Self-provision of alternative water supplies and access to health care is more difficult given household incomes below median. And the prioritization recommendation is Rock Hill with Chair Road and Oakley area shown in Area 1 and the Allendale area shown in Area 2. So one of the things this raises is the question of how do you ensure that private well owners connect.
So the General Assembly back around 2015, 2016, many of you will recall, put a prohibition on what was previously mandatory connection. And so in that prohibition, which does that mean we're going to private session? was NCG, which arrived in general statutes, and so, but it had an out, and so, and that was if the private well owners cannot be required to connect to the water main unless the property is located in an area where the drinking water removed by the private drinking water well is contaminated or likely to become contaminated due to nearby contamination. So contaminated wells contaminated well owners can be required to connect to water mains. And so the alternatives to this are a little bit challenging because, one alternative that was considered would be to obtain a commitment to connect and pay monthly water bills from private water well owners in the area prior to submitting the funding application, only connect willing, which puts a crimp in the schedule for getting this application in. Or the other would be to move forward with the application, design and construct the mains while providing a public education program to encourage private well owners to connect, again, only connect the willing, which could result in a project that builds water mains with very few connections. And so neither of those are very desirable. So the staff recommendation is to explore possibilities for an interlocal agreement with New Hanover County that would enable CFPUA to require mandatory connection where water mains are extended to serve private wells contaminated by PFAS. And so, as I understand it, our legal staff is exploring that possibility of an ILA. Sir. Yes, sir. And that would be consistent with the general statute.
So let's explore that again. So if the property owner's well has not tested above the contaminant levels, we would have to, that decision's actually not ours. We would have to understand if the public health director share that interpretation, that a connection would be required. I think the answer could be yes.
It could be less under the general statute shown on this slide where it says we're likely to become contaminated due to nearby contamination. And it could be, yes.
Piece of this, thank you so much, is that determination rests not with us, but with our partners in New Hanover County and the Department of Health. If in their evaluation they find that it does not rise to their definition of contamination, then we can't require connection, which we understand and respect. But a big part of our recommendation is we're talking about putting these water lines, we're talking about spending about $18 million in areas, some of these areas are relatively low density compared to other areas where we know there's contamination of higher density. The connection requirement we think is very, very important to ensure that these dollars are spent wisely. For example, if we put a water line down the road and there's 10 people there and only 5 of them connect, is that the best expenditure of those funds? our first recommendation is to partner with the county and see if there isn't some mechanism to require connection in cases where contamination is determined by the county. If that avenue is not open for some reason, what we'll have to do is back up and look for a partnership with the county to develop one of these other two alternatives. We'd actually have to go out into all the communities, try to secure agreements first, and then design based on the communities that are most willing to connect. And that's going to be a much longer, drawn-out process. We only have 1 or 2 staff people to dedicate to this. So we would really need the help of our partners in the community, nonprofits, and the county to make that process successful. Otherwise, it will be years before we fully exhaust these funds if we're doing it with just CFPUA resources alone. So first step, ask the county, is there a possibility that mandatory connection is a tool where contamination exists? If the county's health director and others do not believe that there's contamination or that they can make a determination of contamination, then we have to back up and we have to follow one of these other processes. But we do think that this is the best allocation methodology to start this journey. And it's a journey, because we're not stopping with the 18. We're going to ask for more money for these other areas.
Ken, could you add into that good explanation the potential, or the very realistic potential, of the new federal MCLs, maximum contaminant limits, that are coming very soon? Because that factors into your explanation a lot.
I think it will, but ultimately, again, I think the decision rests with the appropriate health professionals serving the county. I would hesitate to guess that yes, if a national primary drinking water standard is adopted, then that is additional data point for them to make that determination. We hope to see something on that this spring or this summer.
Luke, are you tracking with this? The 4 parts per trillion is where we're headed with that. So if you've got a well that's got more than 4 parts per trillion and these standards are put in, it's going to force the hand of a lot of people. I guess the other way around it, Ken, and correct me if I'm wrong, is if you don't get your well tested, what you don't know, maybe what you can say is, I don't want my well tested. I don't want to hook up. It's also kind of a subtle but important issue in there. And there are people out there who simply do not want to be on CFPUA's thing. They don't want the monthly bill, period. And they've been drinking this water for 40 years, and they think it's just fine the way it is, even though science may be different.
And that's a significant challenge.
Yeah.
If we're talking about voluntary connection, there's going to be statistics and experience suggest 30 or 40% of people, even with contaminated wells, who may choose not to connect because they don't want to pay the monthly bill, even if we pay the $42,000 to connect them and all the fees. This burden, unfortunately, rests with our partners at the county, and we defer to them. They're the health professionals. We're not trying to make a judgment on their behalf. If they decide that this is not something that they can support, then we respect that, and we will move to these other options. You will hear more of this, I'm certain, as our partners evaluate the pros and cons.
Madam Chair, I guess Monterey Heights, Market Hill, one of the trying to get them confused, and Heritage Park was something like this as well, where the county stepped in and recognized that there were wells, actual septic tanks that were seeping more into our underground aquifers or streams and whatnot, and so we deemed those areas needing to be connected to water and sewer.
and help facilitate funding for those things as well. So I can see our health department weighing in and coming with a determination, one way or the other.
Mr. Brooks?
So, as in the case with the people from Rock Hill, if we run, so you're saying that if we run the water, thank you. If we run the water out there and make it available for them to tap in, even though their well is contaminated, they have an option not to tap into it and continue drinking water that the public health department says is not safe.
No, if the public health department declares that it's contaminated, then it is. They have to hook.
But it requires that determination from the public health department. So if the public health department determines it's not contaminated, under their criteria, regardless of what other criteria may exist, then yes, they may choose not to connect.
That kind of scares me. We've done a lot to try to get this far, and then to think that someone, after all this work, just won't tap in because they don't want to pay a $150 water bill to drink safe water scares me.
But it would be less than that. The average water bill is $30 to $40. Water
I
only.
was just throwing a number
Yes,
out there.
yes, sir.
I was just throwing a number out there, but I mean, even if we could find the funding to pay to get them tapped in, because I'm sure people are listening and they're going like, well, I don't have $36,000 to tap in, but if we could find the money to get them tapped in, right?
Which this is.
Right. So, which will make it zero cost, but then the only thing they've got to be concerned about is paying the $40, $50, $60 water bill, and then don't tap in. That's fearful.
If you have enough of that, you need to fix the project.
And that's what we're gonna have to do if the county determines that they can't require connection. Then what we will do is we'll work with our community partners. Our recommendation, as you can see, is to expend this money first in Rock Hill. We have a great partnership there. If we can't require connection, we'll work with that community group to try to secure as many guarantees of use as possible. This board will have to decide what the threshold is. If we don't meet that threshold, then we'll have to look at other communities. And that's to be determined. Our first step is the prioritization process, which is what we're asking your buy-in on. And then the next step is to find out if we can require connection. If not, then the prioritization process will naturally roll forward with these other options.
I'd be in support of moving along with your recommendation.
What'd you say, John?
I'd be fine with moving along with this recommendation, going on that road and connecting with our health department and see where things go.
It's the best deal I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
I mean, if I didn't jump on this, I'm a policy, that scares me.
Add one more point to this. Some of the wells in the testing, especially up in the northern part of the county, are extremely high. 16,000 parts per trillion.
North as in where?
In Castle Hayne.
Okay.
And keep in mind, all the data that we have is only from those people who have gotten their wells tested. So you could have one person in a community gets his well tested and it comes up extremely hot, and everybody around them essentially says, well, my well's not. But they've never gotten it tested. The truth is, Castle Hayne and the PD aquifers are contaminated. And if only everybody would get their wells tested, I think you'd see what we have already figured out is the entire county, as far as the aquifers go, are going to come up hot with some sort of contamination. It may shift area to area as to the intensity, but we know we have areas right now that are extremely high. 16,000 parts per trillion goes beyond where this kind of started up in Parkersburg, West Virginia, the numbers they were seeing up there in PFOA and PFOS. It's a serious problem. And I feel confident once our public health officials here in New Hanover County start seeing some of those numbers that we will get to the point where public health alone will require people to tie in. And the next step we're going to get from this $18 million is the necessity for more money to get this distribution out to the entire county.
Madam Chair? So the people that's gotten their wells tested, it was done by Comores, right? So that option is still on the table. People can still call Comores or contact them and still get their wells tested, just without any hesitation.
Yeah.
So we're just waiting for them to reach out and get their wells tested.
Hollis, if you know people, or there's people listening to this here in this room, the message today is get your well tested. The more data we have, the more it gives us more data to go to get more money to get this distribution happening. People are not getting their wells tested.
Madam Chair, that is why I brought this conversation up, to bring it out in layman's terms, because I know those people from Rock Hill are here.
Right.
You understand? And I want them to know that we are trying with all of our might to get them clean drinking water. But at some point, we have to get met with a consensus from the people to get the job done. We can't we can't wag the dog. You know what I mean? We have to have at least some people, and it's up to you guys. We're doing our part. So now it's up to you guys to go out into your community and let's see if we can get this thing finished. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Do you need a motion?
He's not finished.
She's vibes.
And I'd like to just add a little bit to the data point to support, as you were saying, if somebody has their well tested and it's an exceedance for Comores is putting in the tap at a minimum. Comores is taking the well offline at a minimum, which helps this $18 million stretch further. So key takeaways, the $18 million is a good start, but does not address all areas of concern. Using NCDEQ health-based prioritization is recommended. Many of the wells contaminated with PFOA or PFOS, but not Comores-linked compounds. So that we have different compounds out there that are PFAS compounds, but not linked to Comores. PFOA or PFOS contaminated wells that are not addressed by Comores are eligible for bottled water from the Bernard Allen Fund, and the County Health Department is walking through contacting those people. PFOA or PFOS contaminated wells scoring 10 points without Comores-linked compounds will receive significant consideration in future prioritizations after wells scoring 15 are addressed. So this recommendation would take care of every well that scores 15, and then we would move into those remaining wells that score 10 points. Next steps is to select a water extension design engineering consultant for the project, submit an application for the $18 million special appropriations, explore possibilities for an ILA with New Hanover County requiring mandatory connection where water mains are extended to serve private wells contaminated with PFAS. Award a water extension prioritization scope for remaining areas under the New Hanover County ILA. If the board will recall, several months ago, both the Board of Commissioners and CFPUA's board passed an interlocal agreement to do prioritization of areas contaminated by PFAS for potential future extension of water lines. And also in that ILA was prioritization of areas with septic for consideration of extension of sewer mains. And so we've held off on that award until this was resolved. And so that will be coming forward to the board likely next month. And then to continue to identify additional funding sources for future water main extensions to areas with contaminated private wells.
So we seek your motion to support the allocation process.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Motion and a second. Question?
The engineering, that soft cost, that approximately $18 million is that included in that 18 million?
Yes.
Well, I'm sure there are people think that the whole 18 million is going to put stuff in the ground. And the engineering, as we all know, is screaming to can't do it out.
Engineering, system development charges, all of the fees associated with making the connection. Soup to nuts is ineligible.
So the question was, approximately, how much of the $18 million we're talking about?
As a rule of thumb, I would approximate 6%. And then once we get to construction administration, construction observation, it would probably add up, so you could just turn around and say 1.8.
Thank you.
Okay, any additional questions? All right, we have a motion and a...
I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
You said 1.8 million, Gary, is that what you're saying?
I am using a very broad rule of thumb. As we all know, the thumbs get hit by hammers frequently. But say for design, survey, and construction administration, construction observation, 10%. 10% of 18 is about 1.8. And I could very well be.
That is a good point.
I think also, I just want to be clear, and some of you said policy, just want to make sure it's really understood that this money that goes in takes not only the main trunk lines going down in the community, it takes the tie-offs all the way to the well head. So you're getting water from, there's not an additional charge at all to the customer. It's going right to your well, and it's just a matter of hooking into your system, your home system. That will all be done with this money.
That's correct. All right, and a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, I would like to recognize the members of our Rock Hill partners that are here in the audience. So I hope this is good news to you. It's it's been a long journey, but this is a great, significant step, and we need you to go out and talk to people and say you're gonna have a water bill. That will, we need to both meet with this to make it as successful as it possibly can be. So always, we appreciate you here, and please reach out if you have comments or questions. Thank you.
Should we close, go and close?
No, we're going on comments. Okay. Linda's gonna leave because she can. She has a champagne brunch waiting on her, so we're gonna let her leave.
Bye, Linda. See you soon. Sorry.
Because what are we gonna do on our performance reviews?
Thank you again so much.
We'll be back.
All right, moving on to Finance Committee. In the absence of Mr. Corder, the Finance Committee meeting, the minutes are in your packet for review, and we've got a monthly financials review.
Just very, very briefly.
Okay.
That's just a pointer. Thank you. Thank you. Oh. Doesn't work either, okay. Alright. So this is 7 months through the year, so it's more than halfway, and John, what's your prognosis for a surplus or deficit? And I guess what I'd like to share with you is the big key, and let's see, I guess I can point to it, is looking at this unassigned fund balance number. Again, when we end up at the end of the year with something greater than $50 million, we call it a surplus. Something that's less than 50, we call it a deficit. What I'll share with you is that at this time last year, this number was already over that $50 million level, and it continued to accumulate through the end of the year. We ended up the year with about an $8 or a $9 million surplus. Contrast that with this year. So what we're looking at is, okay, maybe being right at around, that $50 million number, or maybe having a slight deficit. And what that is due to is those revenues, being less than where we anticipated, due to those assumptions in terms of customer growth and also usage per customer, not panning out in terms of what we expected. So it's not a big deal. At least in my judgment, we're never going to finish a year at exactly even, right? Breaking even at an exact $50 million number. So, this is just, having that difference be on the other side of the 50. What we would do, I guess, is we would declare that deficit, and we would come up with some kind of plan to fill it. And it depends on how big it would be, right? I don't anticipate something significant. But maybe in the $1 to $2 million range, something like that. And so maybe over a number of years, we would just build that number back up to the 50, something like that. So I just wanted to go ahead and share that with you. Are there any questions? Okay. In terms of the budget, so we've been talking about big drivers so far for this upcoming budget. In April, at the April board meeting, you'll have a chance to go into all of the details. We will do a big budget presentation. We also have a workshop scheduled on the 16th, which I believe is the Tuesday following next board meeting. Thanks, Donna. I anticipate us doing our budget note process that we've done for the past couple of years. So we'll kind of have a big presentation at the board meeting where we'll talk about kind of the ins and the outs and what we're looking at. We'll give you some time to kind of chew that over, bring it back in the budget workshop, and we can dive more into the details. And then after that, we'll be taking those budget notes, and our goal generally is to turn those responses back around in a week. And so we'll bring back and kind of be working with you all to hopefully come to a consensus budget that we can adopt in May.
So if I might, my April trip to Washington will conflict with the April board meeting, so I've asked John to sit in my stead here as acting executive director for your meeting. And of course, our work session is the following Tuesday, where we're going to bring you all of this together. We've talked about a lot of moving parts and pieces, but we'll discuss all the challenges. We'll have some suggested futures for you to look at. And our goal, which is not a necessity, but our goal is to get you to a comfort level where you adopt a budget with whatever structures you tell us are appropriate in May. We might have to have a second meeting in May if that is necessitated. But the logic there is we have members who are wrestling with difficult budgets with the city and county. And we'd like to help them get this part of their calculus solidified so they could do the calculus for our larger parent agencies without having to worry about what does this mean. So that's the logic.
All right, any other questions for John? Thank you so much. All right, nothing from Sustainability Committee since we did not meet this month. Moving into old business, I don't think we have any old business to come before the board, correct? Okay. The last Q&A, closing comments. So I need a motion to go into closed session to discuss a personnel matter. Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. All right.
Can I ask the HR director to stay?
Yes, and the HR director stays. Sure. Yep.
And we can actually shut down the sound system since we're in closed session, yes.
No, I think they get, I think they
We don't actually have to record that open session on video if you don't want to. I mean, that's the only missing piece. Yeah. So we are coming back in. Yes, for CFP. So we can go ahead and shut down the system.
We can do, I
Yes.
think they're gonna need access to this too.
Let's let them do their thing and then do our closed session. That's all right, let's take a break.
Are you the chair of this board?
That's right. Yes.
She is
You
the-
want to shut
I'm taking
there?
charge today.
Jason, we're gonna
I'm in the wrong business. Yes, holy smokes. Jennifer, is there any negatives on Nicolette? questions. Ken, did you work with Nicolette in Raleigh? I see. That was where the recommendation. So she has not only the experience here at CFPUA, but also in Raleigh, so even larger thing. Right. Yeah, I think we have a really unique situation here, and combined with what we're, the suit against Camor's and the long-standing relationship with the George House, and that it's hard to rebuild that with a new person. But correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't the deal with Linda that she would stay on with the Camors to advise us until that's completed? Ken, I don't see your past relationship with Nicolette as a negative at all. I see it as a real positive. It only expands your knowledge, thus our knowledge, of what she's capable of doing, and the fact that she's worked in municipal situations, whether it's with Raleigh or the Raleigh utility. I think that's really helpful. So I wouldn't shy away from your comments, is what I'm saying. there's no buzz. That's right. Yes, yeah. You guys both went the same place, yeah. Yeah.
The liquor stores around the corner. Make that a 15-minute break, so I can throw it out.
Yeah, no, of course, yeah, thanks. Yes. Yeah, I know. It's the same thing, Dean, yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, sure, yeah. Yeah. Is that right? Yeah, you can be kids. Yeah. Yeah. Classic. Well, I can't believe that this is there's not. And I think what part of this, especially. They took care of that this past week. Yeah, every floor they were taking the ceiling tiles out and doing that. But they don't have something. There's literally no. Yeah, is it? They had, what they were doing there was going through trying to find a password. And they couldn't get the password to get into the system to be able to tell the system to please power down. Or did you turn it off? Is there no? There's not a manual button. Yeah, nope, there is not. So that is, I'm just feeling too old, I guess. I just can't even believe it. I would never, as a builder, it's something like that. It's crazy. Yeah, I mean, really, it's been 2 hours almost. Yeah. Anyway, I'll stop whining now. Yeah, sure. Yeah.